We start with, to my right, Manushka Tielmitus. I imagine that's not how they pronounce it in English. I think it's probably Manushka Thermidis. So Manushka Thermidis is at San Francis Hospital in Memphis. She serves as the Chief Operating Officer. She's responsible for the day-to-day operations of the facility and plays a key role in leading improvements in the delivery of quality care and strategic growth. There's a lot more to say, but we'll leave it at that for now. To her right is Lori Hall. And believe it or not, this young woman is the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Creative Services for TV One. In this role, she strategically develops and executes the network's marketing initiatives across all platforms. We'll hear more about Lori Hall shortly. We also have with us Jacqueline White, who I worked with for quite a while at Union Pacific Railroad, and I've been soliciting her for years to come down and talk to us because she's exceptional. She's currently Vice President in the Marketing and Sales Department, focusing on energy at Union Pacific Railroad. She has also led, prior to that, their supply department, handling the procurement of goods and services, about $6 billion worth on an annual basis. So we have these women here with us tonight, this morning, sorry. But we will be talking to them about their path. So I would like to start with the basics. It goes like this. How did you get here? Anyone can answer, choose to answer. You don't have an order. Just grab it if it speaks to you.
I guess I grabbed it. I was trying to pass it over to Manushka. All right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
All right, I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so much, Michelle and Bernadette, for having me. My name is Lori Hall, and as Michelle mentioned, I'm the Senior Vice President of Consumer Marketing and Creative Services for TV One. And yes, I'm young. I like it. Let's see, really quickly. My background, I had a jagged edge in terms of trying to get to where I am. I thought when I graduated from Northwestern University that I was going to be a lawyer, and then I got to law school and I was like, that ain't working. I went to Vanderbilt Law School for a semester, and I realized it wasn't my passion, and I was miserable. And have you ever had like your gut kind of tell you like something's not right, something's not for you? I had that feeling, and it felt like an out-of-body experience. And just know that when your inner voice and your inner God voice is telling you something's not right, something's not right. So I quit, and I'd never quit anything in my entire life. How many of you guys are A-type people? And you do everything, and you always go hard, and you just want to see it through. That was me. Not anymore. I had to learn how to quit successfully. So I quit Vanderbilt Law School, and to my mother's, sadness, and my dad's delight, because he's like, whatever you want, baby girl. And then I went on to find a job, and I had no idea what I was going to do. And someone at school asked me, well, where are you going? Like, you can't quit unless you have somewhere to go. And I had no idea where to go, so I went to Google, and I Googled TV internships, and I saw Turner Broadcasting. So I went back and I said, I'm going to Turner Broadcasting. I had not applied, y'all, had not applied. So I applied, and out of 6 people they selected, out of 100 applicants, I was chosen to be part of their training program. But before I did Turner, I did Being Bobby Brown, the reality TV show. Have you seen it? Yes. So I did that. Jagged edges. And let's just say steps. And so I did that, then went to Turner Broadcasting because I wanted to see how to do it on a big level. Stayed at Turner for 9 years and had to decide to quit again. And I had a company job. I was senior director, got promoted every 2 years. Some people never got promoted, and I surpassed them to their demise. So they were very upset about that. It's okay. And so then I left to go to a smaller network called UpTV. Stayed there for 2 years as a vice president, and then felt convicted about going to TV One. And I literally had to pitch the president of TV One to be his head of marketing. There was no job online, there was no open description. He was my boss at UpTV, and he had gone to TV One. So I just said, you know what, can I meet with you at your house? He said, sure, come over. And I mustered up all my energy and my courage. My mother was like, oh, you're not going anywhere. She didn't want me to leave town because she loved having me around. But I said, Mom, you know what, this is gonna be a good opportunity. And she said, okay, go for it. And so I pitched him, and he decided that I was the right person for the job, and he made a way for me. And so here I am today, 3 years into being the Senior Vice President at TV1. And that's my story.
My story is probably more traditional sense, and I think there's probably a lot of you going through who are here today to kind of hear our stories that are where I was. So I'm not going to start all the way from the beginning, but I started out in retail buying, in finance, and then I moved on to pharmaceutical sales, and then after that I was in hospital marketing, business development, things like that. And when I made a decision when I got into the business development marketing role at hospitals that I wanted to do more. I knew that I had more capacity and I wanted the responsibility, and I shared it with my boss and said, hey, I'd like to be a chief operating officer, which is not an easy role to get at a hospital. There's only a few hospitals in the country, and there's only a few COO positions in the country. And I would tell you that within Tenet, there are three African American chief executive officers, and there's, I think I am probably the only black African American chief operating officer at this time. So, but I say that to say, not because, it's to say that we are underrepresented in that industry, and so there's opportunities for us to come in there and then say that, hey, we want to represent our community, and then do it well and figure out the path. So my path was to say, hey, I want to grow. I had to go get my MBA. I did it while I was pregnant because I really wanted to grow in the industry. And then after that, I took on additional responsibility without additional pay because I wanted to get the experience, and so my boss was willing to give that to me. And then I interviewed for several positions within South Florida. Because Tenet has 10 hospitals in between Broward County and Miami-Dade, and I interviewed twice and I didn't get the position. But then there was a position that opened up in Tennessee, and which I had a brand new baby. She was about a year old, and I have a young family, and my husband and I made the decision that we were going to go for it because we had worked so hard, so many years, we put so much time into it, that if I'm sitting here to wait to get the position within the most, I would say the most aggressive and desirable market, then it might take me another 15 years. I gotta wait for somebody to die or retire to get this job, right? Meanwhile, there's a perfectly good COO position at one of the largest hospitals for the company that's available. And so we were nervous, we were comfortable. We have 2 grandparents here that loves their grandbaby, and I have all my sisters here. And we decided to take a leap on faith and said, no, we're gonna make the move. And one of the things I do wanna share with you today is that if you are eager and interested in growing in corporate America, you have got to be ready to move, okay? So saying that you're gonna stay in South Florida and you're gonna get this chief executive officer position or the COO position or the VP of business development position, that it may happen for you, right? However, it may happen for you quicker if you're mobile and willing to move, okay? So.
Good morning. I am so excited. I'm trying to contain myself. It's not often.
Yes, it's on.
All right, so it's not often that I'm in a room full of such beautiful women of color from Nebraska, in Omaha. So I'm trying to contain my excitement about this, and so I'm really.
They can't hear you.
It's the mic.
It's not working.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Did you hear about my excitement? Yes. All right. Did you hear about I'm not often in a room of women of color? Yes. Fantastic. So my name is Jackie White, and I am in Omaha, Nebraska. For those of you who have to look it up on the map, just look in the middle. and you will find the state. I'm with Union Pacific Railroad, as Michelle mentioned, and I'm so happy to be here. It's been a long time coming, so hopefully today we'll be able to share some insights with you that will help you on your journey. But the question was, how did I get here? And I'll make it very brief. I got here through a lot of ambition, a lot of mistakes, a lot of support, great sponsors, great mentors, and tenacity to do the best that I possibly could do. That pretty much sums it up. I'm in a company that is primarily male. I've been there for 25 years. I stumbled into the company, and I guess I would say it's faith because we've been on that path here for now 2 days. I stumbled in this company because when I was interviewing for the job when I started, I did not know at the time that the second person they were considering for the job was my boss at the company that I was looking to leave. I found that out afterwards from the HR person who was a sister who was wonderful, and she wanted to share that story with me that I wasn't aware of. So I call it faith, so I've stayed there for a while. I've worked primarily on the strategic sourcing side of the house. I've been over on the marketing and sales side of the house for about 4 years now. So I say I went from beating people up to buy stuff to having to swoon people to sell stuff. So I'll leave it at that, and hopefully we'll have a little more dialogue, but happy to be here.
The audience will get an opportunity to ask questions as well. I'm just helping get it started. So one thing is, how did you get noticed, do you believe? What was it about you and your skill set that made you executive material?
I'll share your mic. Okay. I'll take a little stab at that one. So I would say that in my mind, I've always been executive material, right? But it was really in my mind. But and I always knew that I had, I said earlier, capacity to do more than what I was assigned. And so first I would say it starts with you. So identifying what your strengths are and what your talent is. I did a lot of you guys have all did the Myers-Briggs and all that stuff, right? I would tell you don't do them. Do strengths finders, right? Yeah. Strength finders changed my life, right? We did a leadership course. And Strengths Finders is different from Myers-Briggs because it focuses on what your strengths are, right? And it helps you develop what it is that you're strong at, as opposed to the Myers-Briggs and all those DISC stuff that tells you what you're weak at and then how you're supposed to fix the weakness. By the time you turn 30, 40, like your weaknesses, it is the weaknesses, you just gotta improve on them, right? But your weaknesses are not gonna become your strengths. But if you figure out what your strength is, and then you say, you know what, I'm gonna hone in on these 3 skills, and I'm going to be excellent at this, that's how you get noticed. So when I went into Tenet, I just so happened to be in a heavily African-American Haitian demographic hospital. And so that in itself was unique. And what I did was I did not run away from the fact that I was Haitian. I didn't run away from the fact that I was black, though I was the only black executive on the team. What I did was I embraced that, and I used all of my resource in the community. I called every commissioner that I knew, everybody who owed me a favor, I just called them, they owed me a favor. But I called every community leader. I had them all at the hospital to meet with our CEO who had never met the community before. And I think that sparked an interest, and I used that as, I would say, I leveraged my strength in the community to bring awareness about myself to the hospital. Another thing I would say that I would do is I took on additional responsibility. When you take on additional responsibility that you don't have experience for, then people are like, oh, I didn't know that she could do that. And so take risk and take on some additional stuff, figure out what your strength is and leverage that and not focus on your weakness so much.
Absolutely. I guess for me, I just tried to write some notes. That was fantastic, by the way. I agree wholeheartedly with Manushka. One of the things that the president of Turner Broadcasting told me, and he took a special affinity to me because of the hard work that I did, is do the stuff that nobody else wants to do. Say it again. Do the stuff that nobody else wants to do. If nobody else wants to do it, they're always going to recognize that you got it done, right? So do the stuff nobody else wants to do. That's easy, right? And don't complain about it. One of the other things that I did, and I coached a young lady at Turner Broadcasting about this, and I later pitched her to be at BET, and she got the job and skipped a level and got the job. Dress the part. Right? Dress the part. You ladies look beautiful. You look amazing. I know every single one of you is dressing the part. But if you see at your office how people are dressing, you know, what they're wearing, if it's a casual culture, don't come in there with an evening gown. Right? If it is an executive culture, don't come in there with jeans every day. Dress the part. One of the things that I did, because I was young and I was hustling, right? But I always dressed like an executive. Always. And when I dressed like an executive, people started to act like I was an executive. I remember sitting in the SVP of Marketing's chair in a meeting one day, and I was just like a manager or coordinator, and there were no other chairs there. And she said, Lori, take my chair. You're gonna be sitting in it one day anyway. I was like, you right, right? So do that. And then the last one is, you know, work hard and keep your head down. A lot of people complained about not getting promoted at Turner when I was there, and I told them, your career is in your hands. If you don't like the fact that you're not getting promoted, move on or stop complaining. That's it, y'all. Your career is in your own hands. I ended up launching all of Tyler Perry's shows at TBS at 23 years old. Right, at 23, my SVP looked around and said, we got this new guy named Tyler Perry, and I think he does plays around, and this is before he had a movie. Lori, do you think you can lead the marketing for that? Everybody else is kind of tied up. I was like, sure. Right? Whenever somebody asks you to do something, the only answer you need to give is yes. Yes, yes. So always take those opportunities as well. Whenever somebody looks to you for something, do it and do it well, and you will get noticed.
Okay. I don't know how much more I can add to that. I'll say this. Just doing a great job is not going to get you to an executive job. It's just not going to get you there. It's going to get you an invitation to the table. It'll make it through dessert, perhaps, but it may not get you invited back for the next dinner. So keeping your head down and working hard where you are in your career, that's a great start. It's a great foundation that you build that helps to get you noticed, obviously, if you're doing a great job. Being a disruptor. So when you're just taking a job and doing the jobs that no one else does, are you doing something different with that? Are you doing something that no one ever thought about? And is it bringing the value that they're looking for in that job? And as you're in that job, are you reaching out and developing the right relationships? Because that's what's going to get you from being the great person that everyone goes to that always will say yes, the great person that's going to always do a fantastic job because they know that's who you are and what you do. But it's not necessarily going to get you to that next level that you might be seeking. So you have to start to form the right relationships and engage with others. And sometimes those others don't look like you, depending on the environment that you're in. You're going to have to be willing to take risk. We heard a lot about authenticity today. It's challenging sometimes, depending on the environment you're in, because you're saying, do I have to adapt to be accepted? And so you're trying to adapt the way you talk, the way you look, the way you respond to those different situations using the appropriate emotional intelligence. But when you figure out how to do that and you form the right relationships, that's what really gets you to the next level. So it's not always about how hard you work. And it took me a long time to realize that because, you know, you could do a fantastic job, but you're going to always be the workhorse. Somebody else is going to be the show pony.
Amen.
I'd like to piggyback off of the comment made by Lori. She said, my former boss moved over to, which entity was it? To TV One. So he moved over to TV One, and you pitched him. And I want more than one person to answer this, as many as you want, if all three. Is it about who you know?
Yes, 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 yes. 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 Do all that. Yes. So I will share this. I shared earlier that I was, after I left Macy's, I went to pharmaceutical sales. So after I did pharmaceutical sales, my husband and I started a small business, which was very successful. And the reason why I ended up at the hospital is because I got a phone call. And the phone call was from the CEO of the hospital saying, hey, one of the doctors shared with us your name, and I have this position available. Would you like to come in and hear about it? So he pitched to me. But he pitched something to me because of the relationship that I had with these physicians from 2 to 3 years ago, people who I hadn't talked to for years, right? That based on the impact that I had with them when I was in my role, they thought of me when a VP position came opening up at a hospital, which I had no experience doing. So yes, absolutely, it's all about who you know. And it is about what you know too, because, and I think we'll get into mentors and sponsors, the difference between those, right? Because I had to learn really the hard way, the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later. But when someone does sponsor you, like this gentleman did, and said, hey, this girl doesn't have hospital experience, but bring her in, I think she's strong enough to do the job, then you can't let them down. Because that's why they sponsored you, is because they know that though you don't know the material, but you have the tenacity, the strength, the discipline enough that you're going to make them and that recommendation look good. So I would, yeah.
I'm just going to add a little bit to that. It's definitely about who you know, but more importantly, it's about who knows you. It's about who knows you and what they know about you. That's really going to help you to excel. So yes, it's great that you form those relationships, but sometimes someone's watching you, you don't even know it. So every interaction counts. I didn't realize that it was early on in my career before I had made it to the executive ranks. And at the time, I think I was going to grad school, and it was the chief procurement officer for the railroad division, and I worked on the corporate side. And I was sitting in the bleachers at a baseball game. We were entertaining. I had a book in my hand, and I was trying to pay attention like I was engaged, but also preparing for an exam when I returned back. At the time, I was living in St. Louis. And so this individual asked me how I was doing because he noticed something was different. And I never realized how much people have a tendency to observe you. Fast forward a few years after that, we were looking to merge our division on the corporate side with the railroad side. And that meant moving from St. Louis to Omaha. And remember I said, if you don't know where Omaha is, you gotta go look at the map. So I was like, where the heck is Omaha? So I had to literally go look at the map, and then I started looking it up. And I was like, I'm not feeling Omaha. Don't think I'm gonna make that change. So I was entertaining other opportunities at the time. I get back to my office after lunch, and I have this voicemail from this chief procurement officer on the railroad side. And he says, Jackie, just calling to chat with you, wonder if you're still thinking about coming to Omaha. I hope you would consider it. And he said, this will be a threshold move for you. This was a white male. I was at a manager level, and he left me that message. And I thought about it, and he was like, this will be a threshold move for you. So sometimes you have to trust it. But again, a lot of times it's about who knows you. And what do they value? Are they willing to use their political power to support you? Sometimes you know who they are, sometimes you don't. Every interaction counts.
Amen. Right? Give her a round of applause for that one. That was good. Every interaction counts. Absolutely. And you heard a little bit about moving between Manushka and Jackie, so I thought that was great that you guys both had that same thing where you moved and then you were able to excel. For me, I agree with what everybody has said. I had, yes. It doesn't matter who you know. It matters who knows you. As a 23-year-old coming from being Bobby Brown, I know it sounds all crazy. Coming from being Bobby Brown to Turner Broadcasting to launching Tyler Perry shows, you know, I started with Tyler when he had this warehouse, didn't have a sound room. I recorded him for a radio spot between clothes racks at his studios. And the interesting thing, as our relationship grew, and I have a lot to be thankful for with him, by the way, but as our relationship grew, he did subtle things to cue the white executives at my company that I was important, right? So we would take meetings, and it'd be the president of all like 5 Turner Broadcasting networks. His name was Steve Coonan. It'd be my boss, the SVP of marketing, Trisha, and then me, like a manager, a coordinator, or manager. And we would get in a room, and Tyler would come over and he would whisper something in my ear. And I would laugh. And they were, you know, after the meeting, they said, well, what did he say to you? I said, oh, he's just so thankful for the network that we're here and we're launching his shows. And what he really said was, I'm so proud to see black women. And I had another boss who was black too, a black woman. I'm so proud to see you black women over here just doing the thing. So yes, so I couldn't tell them that. And so I became what you would call, I guess they would call me the Tyler Whisperer, but it wasn't because of what I did. He saw me. And whenever he had a problem, he called me, and I'd be freaked out. I'd be like, oh my God, Tyler called me. He has a problem with something. He could have called the white executives. He could have called the head of the department, the head of the network, but he called me. So every time people went over to his studios to record him, I had vice presidents going over there. They'd say, Lori, can you come with me? I said, why you need me to come with you? I don't do video, I don't do all that. They wanted me to come because they felt that if I were there, things would go smoothly. And when I would get there, I would be lingering in the back. I'm still very young in my career, a manager, so I'm just kind of like, all right, I'll be back here. What did Tyler do? He would yell out, he'd say, Lori. And I'd be like, yes? He'd say, do I look okay on the monitor? Yes, you look great, Tyler, thank you so much. But what that did to everybody in the room was, they were like, oh, snap. And you'll have people like that. And the black woman who was my boss at the time, Vicki Free, she's at ABC now, she was fantastic. She was a sponsor. I had launched so many of Tyler's shows that she wanted to develop a business unit targeted to African-American marketing. And she asked me to move from traditional marketing, mainstream, i.e. white marketing, right, general market, to start this African-American targeted marketing group. And I asked a mentor, should I do it? And he said, no. He said, no, you will take a step back, it will pigeonhole you, don't do it. I prayed on it. I knew she was a sponsor for me, and I did it, and I just kept rising through that. She promoted me. She made sure I had what I needed. She was, you know, a sponsor for me, a champion for me. So it's very important, not just who you know, but who knows you. And the same thing happened with TV One. When I pitched for that job, someone was sitting in that seat as SVP of marketing. Did I care? No. Did I worry about it? No. I'm pitching me. And so when I pitched him, he said, you know what, I want you there. And he made a pathway. And unfortunately, he let the lady go, but he saw fit that I would be there in that role. And so I'm very thankful and blessed that I stepped out on faith to pitch myself and that I knew someone who also knew me.
I'm not going to give you the mic forever. I may take it back. But for now, I'd like to know who has a question for the panel. You too. Just come up. You can take this and, yeah.
Hi, ladies. Just a quick question. I know you talked about what we needed to do to get there, but I want to know how you guys feel about coaching. Have you used a coach? I know some people, we're all smart women here, and we know what needs to be done, but sometimes taking that step, getting that guidance, not necessarily, you know, we know we could use our mentor and sponsors, but now in the day and age of a lot of people being coaches and, you know, developing their business through that, have you guys ever used a coach throughout your careers, and do you feel it's beneficial? Has it helped you?
I have not used a coach, but I am all for coaches. I think coaches are fantastic, and please believe that your counterparts of other ethnicities are using coaches, and you have no idea, especially the white males. They all have coaches.
I've not used a coach yet, but I'm definitely very open to it.
Okay, I'm the kid on the short bus, so yes. I have had a coach, and actually my initial reaction to it was mixed. But once I actually got into it, I thought it was fantastic, because who wouldn't want someone to spend a whole lot of money on you to help you get better? Right? And too often, sometimes we think that we have to do it alone. We don't want to show our insecurities or our faults, and we don't really want to actually unveil to people the true you. But the true you is what really they're looking for, right? And so coaches, I think, are fantastic. They help you to give you some relevant guidance. They help to give you some support, give you a safe zone that you can express how you're feeling without thinking that something else is going to happen as a result of that. So I would recommend, if you have the opportunity to get a coach, definitely do it. My coach was Karen Goins. If you don't know her, she's a fantastic sister. But yes, coach, I would recommend it if you would like.
I was just gonna add one last thing. I did a speaking class called Speak Easy, and it was fantastic. And I thought I was a pretty good speaker until I saw myself on tape. And the way they took me through the coaching of the speaking, I ended up crying when I told a story. They wanted you to tell a powerful story. I ended up crying when I told it, because I finally got to be my authentic self. And it was hard for me to tap into that without somebody pulling it out of me. So yes for coaches.
I'd like to add to that one. So I did Speak Easy as well. And when I did Speak Easy, I did it in New York. And I was in a room with a few other people, not many, right? It's a small group. And I realized that among these people, I had the lowest level position as senior counsel commercial law that I was at Union Pacific Railroad at the time. Meaning we had CFOs, we had COOs, we had C-level folks. And after Speak Easy, I also noticed that all these people I'm watching, these public speakers, yeah, I think they went to Speak Easy too, so many of them. Now you realize it's all about training, so it's not as if there's somebody with a secret out there. It's not like, oh, they're so talented, the talented few, they just kind of rise above the rest. No, they are trained. Get trained. Get a coach. Yeah.
I'm so excited I'm gonna fall. All right, so good morning, ladies. You've talked a lot about how you got a seat at the table, but I'd like you to talk a little bit about how you got paid for the seat that you're sitting at the table, and how you negotiated your salary, benefits, how you assured yourself that you're getting fairly compensated just like the men.
Okay, so I am in a heavily male-dominated industry. So if you take a look across healthcare, women dominate at the bedside. So the women are there as the nurse, as the therapist, in all those aspects. But in the C-suites, it's really heavily men. And then it's also, there's not a lot of diversity too. The industry is changing. There's a lot of us coming through the ranks. And so I remember I had this tough conversation with my former boss, where I had to go into his office. I set up an appointment where I shared with him that I was underpaid. And that for, not even just for the work that I was doing, but I was just underpaid at the classification that I was in. And so he said that he would look into it, because there was only one VP at the hospital, so he'd have to check with HR to see what all the VPs were compensated. So then he did come back and said, yeah, you are underpaid, and this is what we need to do to get you to catch up. Now, so knowing that I was underpaid then, when I made this next move, I just made 2 moves to a VP of development in Memphis, and then the COO position. I called other COOs and said, you don't have to give me the exact number, but I just want to know what was your range when you started in that capacity. So I knew up front what the pay range was, and I was very intentional in my negotiations. So I was, like, I'm so intentional now, it's not even a joke. Like, I'm focused, laser focused. I worry about my baby, my husband, and work. That's it. You know what I'm saying? And God, and my health. But I'm laser focused. So when you're laser focused, then, you know, you have to, and the people who knew that they were going to offer me the job, they already knew that Manushka was going to be negotiating about her salary. They did right by me, but I had to, in the process, I did have to get a bump. You have to have those tough conversations. And then you have to have people that you trust, that are confidants within the organization or within the industry that you can reach out to just to find out what the range is. What Indeed says is not the case, okay? If you're following Indeed, then you're underpaid. So, and then too, another thing that we're not looking at too is not just about your base salary. You have to look at the full package. Take a look at what you're getting in stocks, right? Because stocks is really where it's at. So you got to make sure that when you're getting into, if the company offers stocks or long-term incentive programs, that you take full advantage of those things. That's how you build wealth. That'll be another conversation for next year. You know, right? But it's all about, right? You're not doing this just so you can work 9 to 5 forever. You want to build wealth. So you want to be wealthy, you got to figure out, okay, what did others do to be wealthy? It's, you know, you have to do some of this 9 to 10 job, and then also some of your investments. So you have to be very intentional about negotiating your investments as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm going to be super raw and honest. I did not negotiate my salary until I got to be a VP. I think there was a balance, or there was some agita or some nervousness about, I don't know where I'm getting feedback, nervousness about, well, am I really good enough? Because I started really, really young, right? So I felt like they trained me. I got the skill set, but then it almost felt like, well, can I say I deserve X, Y, Z? You know, based on what I don't know where this is coming from. I'm sorry, y'all. Okay. So, I don't know. So, anyway, because I'm talking about money, that's why. So, that's right. My wallet is like, girl, preach. It's like, we know what the ATM said in those days. So I did not negotiate, but my bosses always promoted me every 2 years, and they would give me a slight bump. When I left Turner to go to Up TV, which was a mainstream faith-targeted network, it was scary, but the great part was that I got to negotiate my package, and it was about the whole package. So I got that job because I was on a panel with Brad Siegel, who was the one that went to TV1 to be the president, and the guy from Tyler Perry Studios, Roger Bob, kept pumping me up like, oh, you want the best marketing campaigns? Go to Lori Hall. You want to have an A++, you know, ratings? Go to Lori Hall, right? So he pumped me up. Brad saw my value, so he was the one I was negotiating with directly. And I negotiated money, vacation days. They didn't have stocks and things like that, but I negotiated to get a MacBook. I just threw everything in there. I was like, what you gonna say? You can say no, but I don't have to take the job. So I recognized that I had leverage when I was going to a new job and that they want me. So I felt stronger and more comfortable negotiating that. And then when I went to TV1, again, I negotiated back and forth with Brad, and I guess he got tired of me negotiating. He was like, look, this is the end. So then I kicked it over to my lawyer. First time I had a lawyer negotiate my contract, and I let her do the negotiating. And that was a breath of fresh air because I didn't have to be involved with it. So it depends on where you are, but I think the earlier we can negotiate, the better, the better.
So I'm the oldest person up here. I do believe I can hold that distinction and honor. And a lot of you out here, as I look, are quite beautiful and young, and you probably have a much more solid plan than I did when I started my career. So I've only negotiated salary 2 times. Once each time when I took a new job. And the only time, and I mentioned 25 years that I work for the company I'm with, that I have a conversation about money. And that was the variable income side of my compensation. And when I moved to the executive ranks, that was the only time I had that conversation. I have not had to have that conversation again. We've moved to a point where our compensation is now more transparent. So you can see the ranges of your potential earnings from the very top of the organization, the chairman and the CEO, all the way down to the bottom of the organization. And then looking at those numbers, I know I'm all right. I'm actually pretty good. But that variable piece, those stock options, that grows your wealth. And I got a whole bunch of those early on because I opted for that versus trying to get a whole lot of cash up front. And I've sat on them for years, and I'm gonna have a happy retirement.
Can I just add two quick things? I'm just gonna give you two quick tactics. When you negotiate, you have flexibility. I negotiated for one salary for my first year somewhere and a second salary when I finished a year. You have options, guys. Don't just think that you have to negotiate one base salary. So I negotiated for a $20,000 increase in year 2 for one of my jobs, and I also negotiated for just additional things. You can say, I want a bonus, and then my bonus will be met with this criteria. The goal is to make sure that each side feels like they're walking away with a win. So rather than trying to stick somebody with something specific, say, well, if I grow the business like this, then I want 20% bonus. If I grow the business like this, I want 30%. So they have skin in the game, you have skin in the game. So just think about
Just
that.
add something here. You got to know your worth, right? So you just can't go asking for money if you're not worth the money you're asking for. Right? Right? So you got to know your worth. So it's not always about trying to get the most money out of what you're doing, but if you are being paid for your worth, the money will come. People will recognize it, and you will have those options and that flexibility. But if that's your primary focus, you have to also decide, do I love this job? Do I love what I'm trying to do? Because money is great, but at the end of the day, I hate to sound cliche, it's not going to bring you that much happiness. It's a lot of fun to have it, but you got to be happy about what you're doing, and then you got to know that you're being paid for your worth. You just can't go in there and ask for money if you don't bring anything to the table that says I'm worth this.
Last thing on this topic. I tell you we should just do a wealth topic. Next year. If you're in that same job, in the same company for like 10 years, you're underpaid, okay? Because you're just getting your regular 3% merit and so on and so forth, right? So just be willing and ready to take the risk to do, for the next level, to go outside, right? Because that's really when you see the bump in your earnings, is when you go outside. That's when, because the company, the seat that you're in right now, the company will pay someone from the outside more money to do exactly what you're doing, right? Yeah. So then why don't you take advantage of that same scenario and make yourself available and attractive to another company to give you that bump?
That's a great ad. I negotiated once for an increase in pay. That was, it's many years ago. That was substantial. In the middle of the year, after I had already received my pay increase, and this is what I used, and I think it's a useful tool. I looked at salaries for first-year associates coming out of law school in the top schools or at the big firms. And I said to myself, I came from a big firm to come to you, new employer. And it's just that things had evolved, right? From the time I went with you, you gave me a salary that was commensurate with my level of skill and experience. But right now, first-year associates have a big bump at these firms. So I walked into the general counsel's office and I said, I need to talk to you about money. He said, okay, have a seat. I said, first-year associates at firms like the one I came from are now receiving X dollars. I said, so I really think you should be giving me, at a minimum, Y. He goes, but Michelle, that's a huge, huge increase. I said, yes, but the thing is, if you don't give it to me, it would be because you think I can't get it somewhere else. I beg to differ. I think that if you believe that I'm worth what these other people are worth, then you should give me what they are worth, because when you replace me, you'll replace me with someone coming from that same pool. I got a raise, and The amount surprised me.
We have a question, go ahead.
My name is JC Collins. I actually have a career service where I actually do help empower people's careers. And what I've come across from different people that I've talked to is that as they're writing their resume or they're going through their LinkedIn profiles, they always feel like they're not worth or compared to other people at the level that they need to. A lot of times that they get these ideas from just people that have belittled them in their current roles, or ethics that they've come across in your roles. Have you come across people that have submerged, bullied you, or perhaps in a way put you in a situation where you feel like you're not at their level? And if so, what have you done to withstand that and actually grow from that experience?
I guess I'll take a stab at that. It depends on who that person is that's bullying, because you might have a boss that bullies you, but they're the boss, right? So I had a situation like that, and I think the boss was basically, people told me she was threatened by me, right? Here I am, this young girl, you know, this marketing executive, and blah, 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 blah. I actually had 2 women bosses like that. And I could not figure out how to bridge that gap in terms of making sure, thank you, I was looking for you, making sure that I got the job done and that she didn't make my life a living hell, right? Because quality of life is really important when you're working. You spend more time with the people you work with sometimes than your own family. And so each time I basically mustered, let me set the stage. I would get emails that sounded so funky and nasty that it would make my stomach hurt. And one time as soon as I got that email, I called my sponsor, Vicky. I said, oh my God, girl, what do I do? And she said, you march over to her office and you say these words exactly. Hey, I think we got off on the wrong foot. I am on your team. I want you to win. And I will do whatever I need to do to make that happen. Can we start again? And that's a lot, given that my stomach was quivering and this person made sure that my stomach was quivering. And I did it. And as soon as I walked in that door, the woman was like, oh, okay. Like as if she hadn't just sent me this nasty gram to make me quiver in my boots, right? And it was still a little bit of a rocky road, but let me tell you what, it got better. She started to trust me more. She saw that I had her back. She started to see that, you know, I'm here for you, and it worked. And that happened with the other boss too. Sometimes it doesn't go over well, and sometimes you gotta go. So you gotta know when to go too. But if you can, do the hard thing. I did it this morning, actually. I did the hard thing with an organization I'm part of. Some women in the organization were suggesting I transfer to a different chapter, and I didn't want to do that. And so I sent a very sweet email. I said, Lori, send it with love. I said, I'm not going to transfer. I will be there at the next meeting. I do appreciate your support and all of the wisdom you've given me. Thank you so much. And that was it. You got to just check yourself and do what feels comfortable for you and something that you can sleep well at night with. But just know that sometimes you do have to do that hard thing in order to get over whatever misconception they have, whatever bullying need they have. A lot of the bullies are really sensitive, y'all. They're really sensitive. And you just got to try to think through how to curb that. I say my job is 90% psychology.
I'd like to know if you guys believe that there are people who are not meant to be executives. We got to talk about it. So, how does that person know that maybe they've reached their upper limit? Because it could be that they have. It's not that they've reached their upper limit in the universe, but maybe in that particular setting, that it's not for them.
Wisdom. Passing it to the wise one over here.
Oh, God, that's a great question. I was just thinking about that because I guess for me, I don't get hung up on titles too much. I get more out of what value people bring me, and people can bring me value, or I can bring them value, and it doesn't really matter what their title is. There are a lot of people that shouldn't be leading anyone. Let's just be honest about that. We talked about relationships, and sometimes people get in positions because of their relationships, not because of their talent or their ability. But I think really great leaders are those individuals that can help people unleash their talent and let them be the best selves that they can be. And so when you find someone that's doing that, they may not necessarily always be at the top of the organization, but there are people that will allow you to tap into that potential that you have and grow and be the best that you can be. I don't know if everyone is really seeking to get to the highest levels in the organization. It doesn't mean that you're a failure or you haven't been successful. It just means that you know where you want to be in life and what you want to do, and when you get there, you're happy about it. So when I think about that question, I go, well, yeah, we know them every day. We got one in the White House that shouldn't be there. But, you know, it is what it is, and you just gotta figure it out and work through it. But I don't think that a title gives you the wisdom and the ability to be able to bring value to someone and help them along their path. I think that if you have the ability to share your experiences, if you have the ability to listen, and you're willing to give people what they need where they are, then we're all great.
Hello?
I think there's somebody who's supposed to tell me when it's over.
No, not me.
Where's that person? But I just wanted to, as a final question for me is there a difference between management and leadership? And which one does it take to achieve that executive role?
To reach it, I would say to reach executive role, you have had to have some management, right? In most industries, some industries you probably don't, but most traditional industries, you have to have managed people, because once you start managing people, then you're like, oh my God, do I really want to do this? Because managing people is not easy. Okay? And then you have people who are highly compensated that don't want to do what they're being compensated to do. And so you are basically, in management, sometimes you end up being mom, dad, you know, you end up being the doctor, the therapist, you know, and then you're like, these are adult people. No, then you're like separating them from fights. Why are you fighting? You know, so management has taught me a lot about myself. One of the things about Strength Finders, do the Strength Finders. What Strength Finders does for you too is that it teaches you how to put together a team, okay? And so now when I'm interviewing people for positions, I don't interview them for necessarily for everything that they're telling me. I'm looking for what gaps do I have, right? So where are my holes? All right, so this guy is really analytical, and I'm good at analytics, but I need somebody who loves doing analytics, so then I'll get him for that, okay? So that way you get a really good balanced team that lifts you up, okay? So when you're, for whatever it is that you're doing, it's changed my life, and how I interview and how I select people, because I do it to fill the holes in my deficits and also in the team's deficits, because I probably don't need somebody else who's good at AutoCAD, and I already have that, right? I don't need someone who's good at negotiating. I can do that. So I'm looking for the gaps that I have in doing that. Leadership is something totally different, right? Because you could be in management and not know how to lead, right? So we're finished?
We are about finished.
Okay. All right. I will leave it. I will leave it at that then. And I mean, we're available throughout the whole afternoon. If anyone wants to meet with us, ask us a question. I've already gotten one card who I'm going to make a connection for. So whatever it is I can do to assist you in your process, that you can do to assist me in my process. I'd love to connect with you and get to know you better. Thank you so much.
I don't think we have a time for a public question, But is there an additional comment from the panel?
Oh, yeah, I agree. We're available. I agree with the management and leadership. I have plenty of stories. But if you want to hear more of my story, you can follow me on Instagram. It's Lori, L-O-R-I-J-A-Y, one word, Lori J. And in my profile, there will be a link, and you can hear my Career Journey podcast. I also have one called 38 and Dating, but you don't need to listen to that one. But my career journey's on there, you guys. And you can always DM me. My email address is on there if you have questions, and I'm happy to answer anything.
I'm like, just LinkedIn me.
I hate following Lisa.
Yeah.
But anyway, I really do appreciate the time that you guys have invested with us today. I would just say, I guess in parting comments, know what you want, know how you're going to get there, and don't forget to always find help.
I want to thank these extraordinary women, Manushka Thermidis, Lori Hall, Jackie White, for being extraordinary and for sharing it with us.